You know how sometimes people will kind of slug off certain things? Slug off? No. Slag off? I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there. But when it comes to like...
I do not like slug off.
Slug off. Hey, why don't you go slug off? So I was slugging off the other day. There's your cold open.
Welcome back to This Week in Film. It's the weekly podcast where we talk about the movies we've seen over the past 7 days. I'm Nick Pronto, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, what's up?
What do you mean what's up? You're supposed to say, how's it going?
I changed it. It's totally different now.
What's up? Not much. Life is very similar to how it was last week. How are you, Nick?
Oh, I'm good.
Cool.
I went back to work this week after my time off, and so I have not seen nearly as many movies as I did last week.
Neither have I. I've only seen one movie this week.
Oh, good. I have seen 2, so maybe we'll be in and out of this.
Welcome back to This Week in Film. Half-hour version.
The movies that I saw include Captain Marvel from 2019 and Alien Covenant from 2017.
Oh, wow. You actually, just followed right through on that. All right. I saw a movie called The Hole in the Ground from 2019.
I don't know anything about that.
You know what? I didn't either, except for that somewhere along the way I must have seen it in a list on some sort of YouTube video because it was in my list of movies to watch.
Well, I was going to say, since we have both seen Captain Marvel, and you saw the Alien Covenant movie.
That's true.
Right?
Yes, I saw both of them. Should I start?
Why don't we save those for the end, and you begin with your hole in the ground?
Okay. And, yeah, we'll save the spoily stuff for later. So, The Hole in the Ground is a movie available on Amazon Prime. Maybe it's available elsewhere too, but it was free on Prime for now until I quit my Amazon subscription because Amazon's jerks. Anyway, for now it's free on Amazon Prime. And I will read you the description that was there on Amazon Prime. It says, a woman suspects that her son, who returned home after disappearing in the woods, is an imposter. And I gotta say, that is a very effective description for the movie. You kind of know what you're in for. But this movie's pretty good. Like this, I was like, I don't know why this is on my list, but all right, the description sounds all right. We'll see what happens here. Kind of low expectations going in, but this is a pretty simple movie. It does follow that plot. I'm not sure exactly what the backstory is. They kind of give it to you in pieces that she was in a pretty crappy relationship with this kid's dad, and I think either he left or she left him. So it seems like they're new to the house they're in, but they're out in the woods and discover this giant crater. And then the kid sort of goes sleepwalking or something like that, sort of goes away for the night, comes back, and she's like, oh, where were you? And he's like, oh, I was here the whole time. She's, what? I don't think you were. And anyway, it kind of follows this plot of seems like an imposter. And so this is kind of a different way to have a movie where a kid's possessed, because he's not possessed by a demon or anything, but it's sort of got a similar feel, except for some reason, I don't know exactly what the effective elements are in this movie. I look forward to watching it again sometime and trying to kind of keep an eye out for what's making this as creepy as it is, because this is a very effectively creepy movie. Maybe it's partly the acting, because the mom and the kid, they're both really good individual performances, but they also have really good chemistry together. And when it's the two of them, before he kind of gets turned or twisted or whatever you want to call it, the two of them you get enough time with them and enough effective exposition setting stuff, like these little hints and ways that they interact, that it's really believable. You can kind of get a sense of what their relationship is like really well. So maybe that's a big part of why the movie ends up being so effective, just because you can kind of really settle into it at the beginning. And I'm not a huge fan of kid actors, but this kid does a really good job. I think their way of, I know I just said that, it's effective for setting the stage and maybe sucking you in a bit, but it's also helpful exposition stuff so that later as things happen, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, man, this really feels like why this is so effective. They can drop changes. They can drop these hints of the kid being different that they don't feel like they're just hitting you over the head. They don't feel like, even if some of them are kind of tropes, they don't feel like tropes because they feel more personal to like this kid, his behavior. So when he does something different, it's like, oh, that's not just, weird behavior. That's really off for this kid. And when the kid starts acting strange, I'm like, it's very atmospherically creepy. So I would say if you can, you and Jill should watch this together. You'll probably both enjoy it as long as she enjoys like actually creepy movies. But I'd also say if you really want to creep yourself out, watch this by yourself. Because there were a few times where I was like, maybe I should turn my lights on. No, I'll just stay here. But
I'm a big brave dog.
If my lights turned themselves on, I wouldn't mind.
That would be more terrifying than anything.
Well, if they turned off, that'd be more terrifying than anything. If they turned on, I'd be like, I don't like that they did that themselves, but now that they're on, okay.
Thanks, Ghost.
And there's not a ton more for me to say about the movie itself, like the plot or anything, because that would be nothing but spoilers, and it's all pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's not complicated, but everything's well done. When it came to looking for any bad elements or having anything that really like turned me off, there weren't any. Even when I tried to nitpick, I couldn't really come up with anything. The closest I could really recall were like things that could have gone badly. So like certain plot events that I might have, that I'd go like, oh man, this could end up being stupid, but then it didn't. So I almost want to say this is a really good example of like, if you wanted to do a horror movie and you wanted to learn how, like, I'm not quite sure what all the elements are, but this movie does it so well that it'd be good for like teaching. I can't really compare it to another movie in terms of tone. It doesn't remind me of anything else, but I would definitely recommend this. And when it came to like just notes on like weird little things, is like, does every horror movie have to start with trees being filmed from the sky? And I think so. I think it's, at this point, I think we've all agreed, yes, that's how every horror movie should start. You know how sometimes people will kind of slug off certain things? Slug off? No. Slag off? I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there. But when it comes to like...
I do not like slug off.
Slug off. Hey, why don't you go slug off? So I was slugging off the other day.
That part's
been edited out.
I'm cutting that whole other reference out.
There's your cold open. So, people will shrug off. That's what I was looking for. They'll shrug off things like kids movies, horror movies. They'll just go, it doesn't. Why would you want a really good movie in that genre? They're not meant to be good. Like, it's no big deal. And I'm saying this as someone who does like to laugh at really bad horror movies. But what I'm really looking for more than anything is a really good movie. And if there's a really good horror movie, excellent. That's why it's so exciting when one really is quality. This just kind of is a really good example of that, where you go, it would be easy to lazily throw out some other copy and paste. Okay, here's a kid who's possessed. But to go like, hey, we really want to make this atmospheric. We want to get really good actors. They're not famous actors or anything, but they're great. So highly recommend it. If you love horror movies, definitely check this out. I don't know why it flew so under the radar, except it probably wasn't released in theaters. And there was definitely, in terms of just like having an impact, there was a moment somewhere in the movie where I was like, all right, the odds of me having a kid just went from 0 to negative 26%. Like there's... Oh yeah, and you and I were just talking the other week about how at the hospital you fear that they might bring you back some other person's kid. This movie is good at capitalizing on that sort of fear. So oh, okay. Please, anybody who likes horror movies, check this one out. That's all I really got to say on it. The Hole in the Ground. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, kids are creepy. I think it was just yesterday we were watching videos on YouTube with my son and my daughter just starts pointing at the screen. Like she lifts her hand up and points at the screen and just holds her hand there. And I'm like, the hell is that about? like it's just like she held her hand there for like 30 seconds and you're just like, stop it. You're terrifying me. It's just something.
I hope that she figures that out and that it becomes a prank that she plays on you guys.
Yeah. I taught her and my youngest daughter how to do that thing where you pull your eyelids down towards your cheek and then you stare up. So it's just like the whites of your eyes and the reds of your eyes. That was a mistake because that's the scariest thing you've ever seen. But then my youngest daughter loves to pretend she's a zombie. Like she'll just walk around the house going, ah. And then I'll be like, too scary, Charlotte, too scary. And then I'll do it and she'll freak out. And I'm like, well, that's just not fair.
What shall we move on to? Captain Marvel or Alien Covenant?
Let's talk about Captain Marvel.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've reviewed this twice already.
Yep. We sure have.
So listeners, if you want to hear this take more than once, it's out there.
So from 2019, Captain Marvel is directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. It stars Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, and Ben Mendelsohn. A few other people here and there. Oh yeah, Jude Law and Annette Bening. Of course, Djimon Hounsou has to be in it because that's the rule. I was positive for a minute that he was in that Alien Covenant movie. There's a guy who talks and he sounds like him, and I'm like, is that Djimon Hounsou? Because of course it is, but it wasn't. He wasn't in that movie. So, like you said moments ago, we have spoken about this movie many times. I think my opinion on it has changed a little bit.
What made you want to watch it again?
My wife hadn't seen it. She was like, ooh, let's watch Captain Marvel.
Gotcha.
And I was like, okay, I'll watch that. Sounds cool. So we put it on.
You said your opinions changed slightly.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's probably gone down a little bit. First off, the movie feels like it's from 2000. I know it's only like 3 years ago, but it does not feel like a movie from last year.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of the point of it, is it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to look and feel like it's from the mid 90s, but it feels like a movie from 2015, like a post Ultron movie, Age of Ultron Marvel movie. It's a pretty good movie.
Now, what does that mean? Because all the stuff that came out last year was also post that. So having not seen Age of Ultron, I don't know if I'm understanding the.
I don't really know what I mean.
Really found its groove yet?
Kind of. It just kind of feels a little identity-less. Like it's unsure of the tone that it wants to have. And I think again, we're spoiling this, and I'm probably going to repeat myself from the last show, but that's the idea of the show. But like Brie Larson, I said this the other week when I watched the King Kong movie. I just don't really care for her. And I think she's good in the Captain Marvel role, especially when she's being a smartass, but she just doesn't do it very much in this movie. And when she does, it kind of feels forced. And I know that's not Brie Larson's fault. That's the script. But when she does do the smartass stuff, I'm like, yes, this is what I like. Give me this smartass girl. Don't like, most of the time she's very serious. I just wanted more of that. The movie's like got tonal problems.
If Captain Sparrow didn't like Jack Sparrow didn't act weird the whole time, but just like here and there for little snippets.
A little bit, yeah.
I think I remember feeling a little bit that way, like in the moments where she was being really sassy, going like, oh yeah, like that's nice. It feels like we just dipped into a little bit of a different character for a moment.
Yeah.
It's a little more interesting when it is.
And I know that she doesn't know who she is for most of this movie, and that probably plays into it, where if there's a Captain Marvel sequel that I'm sure is coming, she'll probably be more of a smartass in that because she knows who she is, because she becomes more of a dick as the movie goes along. That could be the way they're going with it. The other thing is, I like Samuel L. Jackson in this movie, but I don't at the same time. He's fine. I like the young Nick Fury character and stuff, but the stuff with him and the cat just does not work for me. Where he's just like in love with this cat. It just doesn't work because it's never come up anywhere else that he like loves animals. And I don't know, like it's like different and cute, but at the same time I'm like, Nick Fury would not do this with an animal. My wife, like I said, she had not seen this movie, so when the cat went all flirkin', she was shocked at that. I was like, yeah, I've been waiting for that. That's pretty great. Because the whole time she's like, why do they keep calling the cat a flirkin? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And so then the cat ate all those people. So that was fun. I don't know.
I want to come back for a moment to this, like the thing you said before. And I know you said you didn't quite have the words for it, but it got me kind of curious about like the progression of Marvel movies. Like, does it feel for you like it kind of, I'm going to say, slugged in the middle? Like there was like a saggy period where it wasn't quite as solid?
I don't know.
I mean, a lot of those
Honestly,
second
like,
movies weren't that great. Like, Iron Man 2 or like Thor 2, Age of Ultron.
I like Age of Ultron.
I haven't seen Thor 2 or Age of Ultron again, just to admit that. But I feel like they get like a kind of like, this isn't the better movie.
Thor 2 is just very boring. It's fine. It's just so boring.
Well, but something similar happened there too, where like around the time, Ragnarok came out, all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what? Thor's actually a funny character.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Well, what's funny about that is there are a lot of people out there that hate Thor Ragnarok because of that.
Really?
And yeah, there's a lot of people
I don't understand those people.
I don't either, because I feel like they finally nailed that character where he's just like the beginning of Thor Ragnarok where he's talking to that skeleton in the cage and they're like, well, I guess he's just stupid because he's talking to a skeleton. I'm like, he's bored. He's got nothing to do. But yeah, there's some differing opinions on Thor Ragnarok out there that I was not aware of. I thought it was universally beloved.
I thought
of course
so
it's not.
Yeah.
It is not. There's the divisive parties out there. But Captain Marvel.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do those people like the first and second one?
I don't know. I think everyone has the same opinion about Thor 2. I think I'm the only one who says it's fine.
Yeah.
Because it's boring. Like, it's just kind of like something you can just have on. Like, if you're like, all right, this month we're gonna watch all the Marvel movies. When you get to Thor 2, you can be like, all right, I could be on the internet while this movie's on. It's just like one of those things where you're just like, this is neat background stuff. And Age of Ultron has its moments too. And I like Age of Ultron much more after the Infinity War stuff, because Age of Ultron sets up a bunch of post Age of Ultron stuff that I just thought was bad storytelling in Age of Ultron. Mm-hmm. It was really just set up stuff. So like looking back, I was like, oh, I appreciate this a lot more now. I haven't watched it since I saw the Infinity War movies, but like looking back at it, I'm like, oh, okay, I like this. Like thinking about it, there are a few moments where I'm like, well, that's just terrible. But the overall themes of it, I'm like, it's pretty good. And that's what Captain Marvel feels like. It feels like it's in this weird identity place where the movie came out between Infinity War and Endgame, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that how the release happened?
It was squeezed in right
and
before
so
Endgame.
It's
like, I think it was still in the theaters when Endgame came out.
Yeah, that's right. And so it just has that feeling of like, we're not entirely sure what to do with this or where we're going with it. This is going to be a big time character, but she's so overpowered that she's not going to be in the next movie really until the end. So here you go.
Yeah,
but it's a fine movie.
They could have just not had her.
They could have, yeah.
It all would have felt pretty much the same. It's not like, yeah, in Endgame, when she shows up, she does super overpowered stuff, but it feels more like they were trying to give her something to do than this is really important or this couldn't work without her. She's such a big part of things. It's like if that movie fits into a place like without its own identity that much, like where it's just sort of connective tissue within the Marvel string of things, it seems like looking back on it, maybe waiting till right before the last movie is a little late to throw in connective tissue like that.
Yeah, it felt a little forced. But it's not that I dislike the movie or didn't have fun watching it. It's fine. It's a good action movie. The fighting is pretty good. The sequence at the end with the I'm Just a Girl that I had a problem with the first time I saw it, where it just felt really heavy-handed.
Yeah.
My wife Jill did not have a problem with that. She was like, oh no, I get it. It's fine. And I was like, oh, I think it's really heavy-handed. And she's like, no, it's not. And I went, all right, I guess you're a lady, so you can have an opinion too. But it didn't feel as heavy-handed watching it a second time as it did in the theaters, which is good. But the soundtrack itself does feel a little forced. Like, I like the soundtrack. I like all the music in the soundtrack, but I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, it's 1994 or 95. Sweet. I don't know. Where's Smash Mouth's Walking on the Sun? I guess that's all I have on this movie. If you want us to get more into it, go back to our past episodes. But it's fine. I just don't think I liked it as much the second time as I did the first time.
You know, what's really interesting is, in spite of how much I ended up enjoying the majority of those Marvel movies, when you said that idea of spending a month watching all of them, I just felt utter disgust. I want breathing room. Maybe 10 years from now, I'll be like, yeah, all right, cool. Let's relive that whole freaking decade.
Well, you know what, the one good thing about the coronavirus thing is it delayed the Black Widow movie to, I'm not even sure, I guess November at this point, but maybe until next year. And I think that's a great move because it just gives you more room between Endgame and Black Widow. Where, like, I'm still kind of exhausted from Endgame. Yeah. And then you forget that Far From Home Spider-Man movie came out, which wasn't very good, which I feel like I'm going to end up watching very soon again. And I'm not really looking forward to that.
Don't watch it.
My wife hasn't seen it. So
gotcha.
But I didn't hate that movie, but it just wasn't very good. But I think that most of that is because it came right on the heels of Endgame. Like, I think it was like 2 months after Endgame that it came out, and I'm still kind of Avengered out a little bit, or Marveled out.
Well, I don't think it's only that. I think that probably is a thing, because it's nice to not be watching a ton of superhero movies for a while. But that movie just wasn't that great, too.
Yeah. Although Night Monkey's still very funny.
It had its moments.
All right, so I guess that's it on Captain Marvel, which brings us to
franchises.
Speaking of movies that weren't good, Alien Covenant from 2017. This is directed by Ridley Scott. It stars Michael Fassbender, Catherine Waterston, and Billy Crudup for some reason. and Billy Crudup, I think, is just desperate to play Abe Lincoln in something because he looks just like him. Oh, Jussie Smollett is also in this movie, who we spoke about the other week. He's that guy who
allegedly
hired people to beat him up for hate reasons.
We did reference him
last year.
We were talking about his sister being in
that's right. That's
Birds
why
of Prey, and how she's not Zoe Kravitz.
Allegedly his sister.
Yeah, that's true.
Or did we confirm that? No. I don't remember. But I don't think I'd ever seen anything with him. He's terrible in this movie, but it's not his fault. It's because this was a terrible movie. Before we get into spoilers, this movie sucked. This movie sucked, and it sucked so much, and I hated it. So we'll get into spoilers now as we go. But I think the thing I hated the most about this is that for like the first 20 minutes, I was really into it. I was like, this is cool. I am feeling this. And then they're on that planet. Here's where everything started going bad for me. It's not that they decide to go answer like this distress call or the radio call. I agree with Billy Crudup that they have a responsibility to answer a weird distress radio signal or investigate it, especially because it's only a couple days out of the way.
Wait, isn't the distress signal like some music from John Denver or something, though?
Yeah, somebody's singing Country Road, Take Me Home. And they're like, well, we need to investigate this just to see what's going on. And the main girl, Catherine Waterston, who has the worst haircut you have ever seen.
I'm going to have to look this back.
Is like, I don't want to do that. And Billy Crudup's like, well, we need to, and this planet seems perfect for us, so we're going to go check it out. So they go to this planet, and they're like, well, we got to land right here in the middle of a hurricane. And it's at this moment the movie goes downhill so fast, because not only do they try to land their spaceship in the middle of a hurricane, instead of waiting for the hurricane to go away, or landing outside of the hurricane, and then if you really need to be in that area, go below. Instead of going through the hurricane, go where the hurricane's not and land nearby. Because when they do go through the hurricane and then they land their ship, they park 10 miles away from where they need to go.
Oh, yeah. It is a bad haircut.
They get out of the ship, and Billy Crudup's like, hey, Michael Fassbender robot, where's the distress signal come from? And Fassbender's like, oh, it's 10 miles that way. And they're like, all right, well, let's start walking. And I'm like, why didn't you just get back on the ship and move over like 4 or 5 miles? You've got a spaceship, use it. Why would you walk 10 miles in unknown terrain in the middle of a hurricane? Like, I was just so infuriated, like, immediately, or I was just like, this is stupid. I'm gonna hate this movie. And I did, and I hated it more and more. I did like the beginning sequence with Michael Fassbender and Guy Pearce, where Guy Pearce is Mr. Wayland or something, and he's invented Michael Fassbender. And I thought that was a good sequence. I really liked Michael Fassbender overall in the movie. I didn't really like his American accent, where he talks like Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs. I enjoyed his 2 separate performances. They're both similar yet unique.
Part where he's like seducing himself with a flute or something.
Yeah, that was odd. And then he makes out with himself before trying to kill himself, which was weird. And then also after that part, when Michael Fassbender kisses Michael Fassbender and then he stabs him in the neck, I wanted him to say, because he says something like, you broke my heart or something like that. And then I wanted him to turn around and go, and you're a bad kisser. Like, just something, like, because the movie's already terrible enough. Give me something to enjoy. And
I think that was the makeout scene.
It didn't work for me. So,
didn't do it for you, huh?
I think this movie should have just been Michael Fassbender with Michael Fassbender the whole time, but we have to have this whole crew of people so that the terrible looking CGI aliens have anything to do. Because these aliens in this movie look worse than they did in Alien 3.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. You might need to go back and check out Alien 3 again. But yeah, they did, the CGI on some of those things is pretty bad. I felt like the actual like full-grown xenomorphs looked all right, but like the ones that were baby versions or in-between creatures or whatever, they were off.
Yeah. I liked the white-skinned xenomorphs. Like, I thought that was neat, but we don't know unless it's explained more in Prometheus, which I haven't seen in like 8 since it came out.
It's definitely not.
Okay. Well, then this movie
nothing
does
is
not
explained more in Prometheus.
All right, because I looked through the trivia on IMDb for this to like get any kind of information, and it's basically just, hey, you know that scene with the drinking bird? There was a drinking bird in the first Alien movie, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't care. Just tell me why those aliens are white, and then how come after it like eats Billy Crudup and comes out of his chest, it's a black alien? Is it because the alien that comes out of the mushrooms that goes in that one dude's ear and nose, those come out white, but the alien that comes out of Billy Crudup is black? And I'm like, well, what's the difference between these two things? Are these the same, or are they? It just
see, this is one of the problems with Prometheus, is that in Prometheus they were like, you know what, we're gonna make like snake phallic vaginal things, and you know what, we can make up whatever we want. Cool, let's do that. Let's just keep making up stuff.
But it just doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm fine with them having a whole bunch of different aliens. But if David is the one, and that's the Michael Fassbender evil robot, if he's designing these things, tell me what the difference is between them. Because at one point he says this creature is the perfect biological weapon, and I'm like, no. It's not. This is not
the perfect biological weapon is an oversized velociraptor that you can shoot like a gun.
Well, you have to use a gun in order to aim the velociraptor. That way you've got like control. Yeah. You need it. What you do is you take a gun and aim it directly at your target. And while you have your laser sight on your target, press a button so that a dinosaur can attack it.
Stupid Michael Fassbender not knowing these things.
And he lives in the future too, so he lives in a post-Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hated this movie. It was dumb. There's a decent movie in here, I think. And I could just be thrown off by the visuals. The visuals of this movie are fantastic, except for the xenomorphs themselves. I think they looked awful. Like, the sets were cool. I like the way the ship looked and all this stuff. And I mean, it's a Ridley Scott movie, so it's going to look good. But man, was this not a This was not fun. This was not entertaining. I was complaining the whole time, like, well, why are you doing that? Like at one point when the one dude who gets the alien in his ear, like the spore gets in his ear or whatever, and then he comes down with the coronavirus on this planet. The lady who's like a scientist should be like, you're not allowed on the ship. You stay out here and die. We'll try and help you from out here, but you cannot come on the ship. Like they get him on the ship, and then the lady's like, let's quarantine him. But meanwhile, he's been puking everywhere. So you don't know that he's got an alien about to burst out of his back, which was effective. I thought that looked awesome until the alien showed up. And then I also liked later when that alien jumped out of that dude's throat. That was neat. The baby alien that came out of his throat, that looked cool.
See, I don't even remember this stuff.
Those were the two best parts.
Is this the movie where the woman tells the ship to give her an abortion? Or was that Prometheus?
That's Prometheus.
Oh, man. I don't even remember.
Yeah. And that scene has a very special place in my heart because I saw it with my 40-week pregnant wife.
Ugh.
And if you're unaware, 40 weeks is when the baby usually is due. And so this lady's about to give birth to an alien and gives herself a cesarean. And my wife is like, and I lean over and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Didn't see this coming.
I didn't think this would be in an alien.
It wasn't in the preview.
Yeah. Also, the girl from the first movie, I don't think they got the rights to use her likeness in the sequel because David has a photograph of her and it is not the same person.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, how do you screw that up? That's why I was really confused. Also, I could not remember how Prometheus ends except for Charlize Theron running away from that rolling ship the wrong way.
Right.
Where instead of just going to the left, she tries to outrace a ball. And then I thought that was the end of the movie, but I don't remember how it ends. So I guess her and David end up on the planet with the engineers, and then they kill everything there. So I don't know. It's terrible. This was terrible. Really poor storytelling. I would have enjoyed a little more story. Like, tell me what the hell is going on. Like, I feel like this was a movie for people who had read the books based on the other Alien movies, and they're like, the only people who are going to see this are the real fans. And I'm like, I like Alien movies. I thought Prometheus was okay for the most part. This was not. This was really bad. I hated this. Also, the people, when they get off the spaceship, the first thing they start doing is smoking cigars and cigarettes on this planet that they don't know anything about. They check the air quality, and they're like, oh, okay, the air quality is like mostly like Earth. That means it's somewhat not like Earth. Wear a goddamn mask, like put on your spacesuit or whatever until you're sure that there's no like germs floating around the area or mushroom spores that can infect you through the ear. And then you got this one dude who smokes a cigarette, and the first thing he does is he smokes a cigarette and then just throws it on the ground. I'm like, I got this brand new planet and I'm the first person to litter on it. Take that, new planet. Enjoy my cigarette. Hated it. Hated
well, maybe that's their clever way of letting you know early on people are going to make bad decisions in this movie.
Yeah. That the landing in the middle of a hurricane was so dumb. And then Danny McBride is in this. He plays he's just in it. And it's like the only
wannabe comic relief.
I guess he wasn't really that funny.
No,
which
there's not that much to it.
It's not much for him to do. And I really like Danny McBride. And I feel like he was trying to do like a more serious role with this movie, but the movie is terrible and he doesn't have a lot to do. And he is in charge of the ship in the sky, and he just keeps saying, we need to bring the ship closer to the planet so that we can get better reception. And the co-pilot is like, we can't do that. And he goes, well, we need to. And then she looks at Jussie Smollett and goes, well, I guess we should just do it then. And she gives him the authorization to do it. It's just like, why did you waste my time with any of this? And then the ship says something like, the closest you can be to the planet is 80 kilometers. And he goes, all right, take us to 80 kilometers. And then 10 minutes later, he goes, take us to 40 kilometers. And the ship's like, well, that'll destroy the ship. He's like, I don't care. Let's do it anyway. I'm like, what the? And then nothing happens with the ship. And then, oh man, all that. I think the worst part of this movie is that it's an alien movie. Is that the alien stuff is so forced. And I think this movie is a prequel to Alien. And I guess the idea is that eventually David's the one who creates that planet that Ripley and Tom Skerritt find in the future. And then find this species. But if by the end of this movie the alien already exists, then what's the point? This is dumb. This is dumb. The xenomorph should not be in this movie. It should just be a different kind of monster that like looks vaguely familiar to this thing that we already know of. And I think people didn't like Prometheus very much, and they panicked because I think this was supposed to be part of like a trilogy or something. And then they panicked and changed course and were like, oh no, it's an alien. It's Alien, which is why it says Alien in the title, unlike Prometheus, which is just Prometheus.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I think this is originally supposed to be like Prometheus 2 or Prometheus subtitle.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was necessary either, because Prometheus wasn't very good either. But
yeah.
I did go see it in the theater, and if you want to hear a more positive review, you can go back and check that. But I know that a couple weeks after that, I was like, I think it was a couple weeks after that Wonder Woman came out, and I was like, oh, here's a movie that's actually good. So I was like, I have been very generous to movies as of late, and I use that specifically as an example. I'm like, I think I went very easy on Alien Covenant, and hearing you say all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I remember having similar thoughts. Yeah, okay, it probably was awful. I'm not watching it again to find out. Not a problem.
You should watch it again, find out. All right. Well, I guess that's it for movies this week, Matt.
Sounds true.
That brings us to our movie ranking list.
I believe it's called 5 on 5.
Oh, right. That's what we called it like a month ago. All right. We'll start with you because I have your list open. And I think you're going to give What the Hole Do.
What?
What lives in the hole?
The hole in the ground.
The hole.
What does the hole do? Yeah.
What does the hole do? We're gonna.
What does the hole say?
Ho, 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 ho. I think you're going to give this movie a 3.5. What do you think about the plot for Hole Do?
I am going to give the story or plot a 4. It's simple but super well constructed.
Okay.
Yeah. Acting, I am going to give a 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah, no, this is a really good, really well put together product. Pacing, dead on point too. That's going to give 4.5. Aesthetics. I remember enjoying the color. It's got sort of that like Zack Snyder DC kind of palette where things are like they're muted colors and then they're like saturated colors, which I happen to enjoy and I think actually fit well for this movie. So yeah, actually I'm going to give the aesthetics a 4 and the enjoyment I'm going to give a 4.5.
Wow. High score.
Seriously, this is a very, like I said, a kind of under the radar kind of thing. And when you see the cover art for it, you're going to be like, this doesn't look like anything special. This looks like any straight to streaming sort of movie, but it's really good. All
right. So according to the math here, your score comes out to be a 4.3 for this movie.
All right.
And that puts it right below Demolition Man. So this is your number 4 movie. This was better than The Invisible Man to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not quite as excited about it as I was with The Invisible Man, but The Invisible Man did have some flaws and stuff, and I really couldn't find any with this. I think it is a bit of a better movie.
Wow. All right. Well, it sounds cool. I think I'm going to try to find that. All right, so I saw Captain Marvel. What do you think I will give that?
I am going to say a 3.
Plot for Captain Marvel, I'm going to give it a 3. It's a pretty interesting plot. There are a few twists and turns. I knew a lot about the character going into it, so that kind of was spoiled for me because I like comic books, but it's not the movie's fault that it was spoiled, but from a storytelling point of view, the movie does a good job. The acting in the movie, I'm also going to give a 3. It's not poor acting or bad acting in any way. I just don't like Brie Larson's face. It's just... Pacing of this movie, it does really kind of move along. I'm going to give it a 3.5. It doesn't really waste a lot of time. I do still hate the scene where the little girl designs Captain Marvel's color scheme. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
That was a really unnecessary, stupid thing.
We've got to get her costume to look like it does like this at this point, and this is how we're going to do it. Aesthetic, the movie looks great. It's period piece. Like, it really feels it's where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to give the aesthetic a 4. Look, sounds great. I really enjoy the way it looks. And then enjoyment of this movie, I'm going to give it a 3. I think when I saw it the first time, I would have given it a 3.5, but this time I'm going to give it a 3. So that's that. And its final score comes out to be about a 3.3, which puts it, real middle of the road. All right, Matt, what do you think I'm going to give Alien Covenant?
1.5.
Ooh, okay. Plot for this movie. This is difficult because the actual plot of the movie is kind of interesting, but the plot that they show us is not. So
the premise, is it the premise that's interesting?
I think so, yeah. Or the shell of the movie is interesting, but then when you crack it open, you're like, oh, it's just a rotten egg. I'm going to give it a 1.5 for plot. The acting, Michael Fassbender's terrific. The main girl, despite her terrible haircut, which is not her fault, although there's an internet trivia thing about her talking with Ezra Miller about the hair, because I guess those two are in the Fantastic Beasts movies, and she was like, I love your hair. I want that for the Alien movie. And I was like, why would you do that?
Oh, it was her idea. It is her fault.
So I'm going to blame there's bad hair acting. Also, Michael Fassbender's hair grows in this movie, which is weird because he's a robot. Why would a robot's hair grow? Data on Star Trek doesn't need haircuts, and all robots follow the same rules. Everybody else in this movie is kind of useless. Like Billy Crudup, I feel like they try to set up like a backdoor Jesus movie with this, where Billy Crudup is a man of faith and they're basically pilgrims going to start a life on a new world, and the main lady has like a Jesus nail she wears around her neck, but that never gets really explained. And then if they are, I don't want to say Christian fanatics because that implies that they're extremists. They just seem like people who are just trying to start a new life, and we don't get to see any of the colonists. We only spend time with the crew of the ship. So a lot of wasted thoughts there, where why even bring it up if it's not going to be a part of the movie? So acting, I'm going to give a 2, and most of that is Michael Fassbender. Pacing, the movie gets a 1. It sucked. Aesthetic, the movie looks great, except for the aliens, which I'm going to deduct points for. I'm going to give it a 3.5 for aesthetics. And then enjoyment, I'm going to give it a 1. And that's mostly because of the scene where the alien bursts through that guy's back and through that guy's throat. And then when the alien bursts out of that dude's back, the alien is like the size of a small monkey. And if I'm hanging out with you and something jumps out of your back and you're dead, I'm going to be like, oh no, I'm going to step on this weird monkey thing and just keep stepping on it until it doesn't move anymore. This lady just runs away and like grabs a knife. And then in this moment, you can really see where she's like, I'm just pretending to swing at like a tennis ball here because it's just a waste of time. And then the same thing happens later where like this thing falls out of someone's body and nobody stomps it to death and they let it run away. And it's able to grow 5 times its size in mere moments. So stupid movie. Wow, this movie had a much higher score than I thought it would. It's a 1.8.
Wow.
Now I feel bad about giving it that high acting score of 2. 1.8. That puts it in line with Bloodshot. Bloodshot was better than this movie. Yeah, I would stick by that. All right, if you would like to see our list, check out our website, thisweekinfilm.com. There you will find a link to our lists on Letterboxd to keep everything looking neat and tidy for us. In addition, you can find anything you want to know about the show at the website, thisweekinfilm.com. So check that out. Matt, anything for Midwest Matt recommends this week?
Yeah, I got 2 things. One, Fiona Apple came out with a new album, so check that out if you like Fiona Apple at all. I had the experience of listening to the second half of it while I was out for a walk, and I was I was walking, and I was like, man, each song seems to really incorporate a lot of somebody playing the saw, and then I realized it was the sound of the air going through my earbuds every time I took a step. So, this album may have less saw than you thought. And then I
guess it's pretty good overall. I never really listened to Fiona Apple. So.
With Fiona Apple, it takes me a while usually to get my final feel for an album, especially the lyrics. They seem to sink in for me over the course of years. But it's off to a good start. Her music's gotten progressively more experimental. So they're less melodic and more she'll use things that are not familiar instruments, so there's more like percussion than it used to be. But so far I like this album. I've only listened to it all the way through twice, but I like it so far.
That's cool.
And then a couple days ago, I started listening to a podcast called Rosemary's Ladies. And it's two women. It's more of a casual podcast. I started with their older episodes, so things may have changed over time. But at least I listened to the Poltergeist one last night, and they kind of walk through the movie beat by beat, and it's pretty chill but likable. There's a little bit of attention they pay to like things like male gaze, and they'll reference. It seems like one of the hosts got a degree in film school, so there are references to like some of the film terminologies, and she'll sort of like explain them along the way. Like, here's what this phrase means. Probably familiar stuff for you, familiar stuff for me, but kind of nice way to revisit some of that too. And it's nice to me sometimes to be able to, like with the Poltergeist one, for instance, just kind of relive the movie without watching it.
Yeah.
Totally, like around, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning or something, I was like, wait a minute, did they remake Poltergeist?
Oh, yeah, they did. That's right.
I totally forgot about that. Like, it was this weird
with
thing.
Sam Rockwell's in it, right?
Yeah. It just kind of like crept up from the back of my brain where it's like, I think there might have been something once where they thought about remaking the Poltergeist. Wait, they might have done that. That might have happened.
I think the plot of that movie is Sam Rockwell moves into this house, and the ghost, also he like leads the KKK, and the ghost is the ghost of an African-American person, so that does not fly. But over time, Sam Rockwell learns the error of his ways.
I think you might be mixing up movies.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah. But anyway, that's it.
What was that show called again? Two Ladies?
Rosemary's Ladies.
Oh, I was close. Okay. If you would like to send us an email to tell us your thoughts and opinions, or to share what movies you watched this week in film so that we can judge you on the show, send us an email at thisweekinfilmpodcast@gmail.com. Matt, anything else for this week?
Nope. That's it.
It's a real quick one, especially after last week's. I guess the final episode ended up being like an hour and a half, but for us it was much, much longer.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess if that is the end of the reel, we will see you next week in film.
And remember, judge movies, not people.
Don't deliberately pick a bad haircut for a movie.
See, I thought you were going to attack Brie Larson.